I'm T Love, and this is the Love Song Podcast, the Love Song Media Production. Before I begin, I want to give some love out to my sponsor, Shirts and More, located at 2517 Jacob Street in Wheeling, West Virginia. Shirts and More is a family-owned business, and for over 40 years, they have been providing the best and most professional garments on the market. Let Tracy, Braxton, Dana, or any of the friendly staff at Shirts and More help you with your next apparel need. Please contact them at 304-232-2030. Tell them T Love sent you. I guarantee you they'll take care of you. I've got a lot to cover on today's episode. A lot of ground. I am going to do my very best. Episode 34. Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz, and their anti-American laws. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is under scrutiny after pardoning an undocumented immigrant who was convicted of sexually assaulting a child. A Minnesota pardon granted last month to Tao Lu Vang, a Laos-born man convicted nearly 2 decades ago in a child sexual conduct case, is drawing new scrutiny from federal officials, state residents, and critics of the clemency process. The Minnesota Board of Pardons granted the pardon on June the 10th, 2026. The board includes Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minnesota Supreme Court Chief Justice Natalie Hudson, giving the decision statewide and national political attention. The case has become controversial because federal officials say Vang had been facing removal from the United States before the pardon was issued. The Department of Homeland Security criticized the decision, saying it could affect the federal government's ability to proceed with deportation, which is the intent of why they did what they did. For Minnesota families, the issue reaches beyond politics. It raises difficult questions about how states should weigh rehabilitation, public safety, victims' interest, and immigration consequences when deciding whether to clear an old conviction. I want to read that one more time. For Minnesota families, the issue reaches beyond politics. It raises difficult questions about how states should weigh rehabilitation, public safety, victims' interest, and immigration consequences when deciding whether to clear an old conviction. Yeah. Minnesota families need to think long and hard when you go to the polls and vote next time. I'll get more into that in a minute. Vang, who is 42, was convicted in 2006 of first-degree criminal sexual conduct involving a minor. Current report says he pleaded guilty in Ramsey County and received a 144-month sentence that was stayed, which means he did not serve the full prison term. He was placed under long-term supervision after the conviction, and reporting on the case says his probation was later discharged. Years afterward, he applied for a pardon through Minnesota's clemency system. The pardon has placed the original criminal case back in public view. It has also shifted attention to the legal power of a pardon, which can do far more than offer a symbolic second chance. Under Minnesota law, a granted pardon sets aside a conviction and purges it from an individual's criminal record. The law also says that a person generally does not have to disclose a conviction except in certain legal or licensing settings. The legal effect is central to the current dispute. Supporters of clemency often argue that people who complete supervision and show rehabilitation should have a path forward. Critics say cases involving crimes against children require the highest level of public accountability. I agree with that statement. The Department of Homeland Security said Vang was set to be removed from the United States before the pardon. Federal officials have argued that the state's decisions could interfere with immigration enforcement tied to his conviction. Reporting on the case says Vang entered the United States in the 1990s and later lost legal status after his conviction. The same reporting says a final order of removal has been issued years later. The immigration outcome remains unclear. A state pardon may affect the conviction, but federal immigration cases can involve separate legal questions, including whether other grounds for removal exist and whether another country will accept the person being removed. The uncertainty is one reason the case is likely to remain in the news. Federal officials may still seek further action, while Minnesota leaders may face pressure to explain how the board reached its decision. How Minnesota pardons work. Minnesota's clemency system gives the Board of Pardons the authority to grant pardons after conviction for state offenses. The state constitution designates the governor, the attorney general, and the chief justice of the Supreme Court as members of the board. Before the board acts, applications are reviewed through the state's clemency process. Minnesota law directs officials to consider factors such as the seriousness of the offense, the time that has passed, the applicant's conduct after conviction, rehabilitation, remorse, and input from victims or law enforcement. The process is designed to balance mercy with public safety. In routine cases, a pardon can help remove barriers to employment, housing, civic participation after someone has completed a sentence. But Vang's case is not routine. The conviction involved a minor, and the pardon may affect an immigration case that federal officials say was active. Those details have made decisions a test of public confidence in Minnesota's clemency system. Why is this drawing so much attention? The strongest public reaction centers on whether the state should grant record-clearing relief in a case involving a child victim. Even when an applicant has completed supervision, many residents expect officials to explain why a pardon is appropriate in cases involving serious harm. The case also raises questions about transparency. Because pardons can carry major consequences, the public often wants to know what evidence officials considered, whether victims were consulted, and how the board weighed competing concerns. For voters, the issue is not only about one man, it is about the judgment of public officials who hold the power to change the legal consequences of criminal convictions. For families, the concern is even more direct. They want to know that public safety and victims' interest remain central when the state considers second chances. I got most of this reporting from CBS News. I'm not going to continue to read the rest of this, but what I am going to do is I've got a whole bunch of notes here, but what we're going to do is we're going to skip down to some more Governor Walz and Minnesota news so that the people of Minnesota can get an idea that my understanding of this case that I was just talking about, this Vang guy, supposedly raped a 10-year-old child. You heard me correctly. This gentleman, this heathen, this animal, sexually assaulted a 10-year-old child back in 2006. This is 2026. Well, T-Love, it's been 20 years. Don't you believe in mercy? Does he still have his balls? Because if he does, then the answer is no, I don't believe in mercy. If he doesn't, then yeah, let's take a look at it. Now, the child was 10 years old in 2006. This is 2026. That child would now be 30. Did they talk to the 30-year-old victim? Because I'm looking at all the evidence. I'm not seeing what they did. I come on here all the time, and I talk about how you can't be a Democrat, you can't be a Republican, they're both this, they're both that. I believe that with all my heart. But I will make a statement here that I've made many times over as well. The current Democrat Party is as anti-American of any party I've ever seen. You can talk about Donald Trump, you can talk about Joe Biden, you can talk about, Obama, you can talk about Bush 43, you can talk about, you can go back and talk about anybody you want to. I don't give a rat's butt. Obama ushered in the trans movement. Biden broke the border. Biden arrested parents, labeled them domestic terrorists, who were speaking out at school board meetings because they didn't want certain sexual conduct or certain content in certain books being allowed to be checked out in the libraries or read to them, their children in the classrooms. Biden also arrested 6 Christians and labeled them domestic terrorists for doing a sit-down, sing-along outside of an abortion clinic. And I watched all of the radicals on the left talk about how white supremacists is the biggest threat to the United States of America. Bullcrap. Radical leftists, radical right-wingers are the biggest threat to the safety of the United States of America. Radical anything is the biggest threat. Not this made-up crap. But as it pertains to this right here, you've got a governor, you've got an attorney general. Let's face it, Keith Ellison ain't no squeaky clean. He should be behind bars. This man has assaulted his girlfriend, beat the mess out of her. I saw the pictures of her online. It was in, I don't even know how this guy's still in office. Oh, that's right. The Me Too movement doesn't apply to Democrats. It only applies to Republicans. Release the Epstein files because Donald Trump is a pedophile. Apparently it doesn't matter to Democrats. Because those same Democrats who claim they want the Epstein file released, 207 of them get money from AIPAC. Do you think AIPAC is going to allow the Epstein files to be released? And those same Democrats who are screaming, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, they also voted down a bill that would out their colleagues in Washington who have been charged with sexual misconduct and had to use the taxpayer funded slush fund to pay the hush money. Oh, hush money. That's what we convicted Donald Trump on 34 felony counts for, right? Do you not understand the hypocrisy here? Trump is bad. MAGA is bad. And everything else is right in the world. No. This vain guy sexually assaulted a 10-year-old child. 20 years later, he gets clemency. He should have been deported. Let me back up. They should have tried, convicted, and then unalived him 30 days later. I am a very big supporter that if you kill someone, I can't say kill, I apologize, let me back up. If you unalive someone, if you murder someone, if other than in self-defense, they've got video, they've got DNA, they've got, it's a slam dunk. I'm not talking about a preponderance of evidence. I'm talking about factual evidence beyond any reasonable doubt that this person committed this crime. Give them 30 days to make an appeal, and when they lose their appeal in 30 days, send them straight to the chamber. The point that we come to as a society, that we start putting down those who can't abide by the laws and the rules that everyone else abides by, is the point in time that we start pardon me. That's the point in time that we start gaining our society back. That is the point in time that we push the animals into their cages. This is the point in time where you push the animals away at the gates when they try to come into our country. This is why we cannot be the welfare system for the entire world. These people that come over here from these other countries have a religious, a moral, a principle, a value system that absolutely, it doesn't differentiate from ours. Okay, no. It clashes with ours. It goes against every grain of thread that we stand for. But it gets worse, because Walz, as the governor of Minnesota, he's the guy that wanted to put tampons in the boys' bathroom, which is where he got his nickname, Tampon Tim. Minnesota is a sanctuary state. Pardon me. Here's my problem with a sanctuary state, and I'm going to get back to the tampon in a minute. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch. I've never been to law school. But it's my understanding that we have federal laws. Federal law trumps state law. No pun intended. I don't understand, if we have a federal law on immigration, how a state can then go in and make themselves a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. And I don't understand how cities can make themselves sanctuary cities, because it's my understanding of that sanctuary policy or law, whatever, it actually defies the federal law. So my question is while we're sitting around and we're fighting, arguing, debating, deliberating about the law and sanctuaryism, if it's a violation of the law, if the sanctuary laws violate the federal laws, why is the Federal Department of Justice not filing charges against the politicians at the state and local levels who are defying the federal laws? That would solve the problem. Again, it goes back to what I said. many times over. I will say it many times moving forward. The United States of America no longer exist. We are the divided states of America. I spoke to a lady some time ago who is a Democrat and has been a Democrat for most of her life, and she is in her late 50s. Her family was affected by a violent crime where one of their family members lost their life to an illegal. It's at that moment that that woman became a Republican. Because her stance on her family's life differentiates from the Democrat policies. And we had a very calm, collective conversation. As many of you know, I can bash both sides, so I can speak for or against either. But at some particular point in time, ladies and gentlemen, most people will never change their mind until it happens to them. Several years ago, I was in a minority community. I was there lending support to a employee that worked with our company, the company I worked for at the time. This woman's daughter had been brutally murdered by her boyfriend. And as I went there, and there was other white people there, but I was certainly in the minority, she looked at me and she said, "Has your family ever faced this?" No. Several weeks went by. She and I sat down and had a conversation. And we were going over crime stats. And it was at that moment I became very educated on the crime stats and the ethnicity makeup of those crime stats. Me and this lady became educated together. I did not know until a couple of years ago, when this happened to someone that worked with me, under me, whatever, that 15% of the population is responsible for 80% of the crime. I was amazed. I was shocked. That can't be right. And as I've ventured down this podcasting avenue, I do a lot of research. And when you take the emotion, you take the political, you take the racial, you take all the emotion and all the bias out of your conversation, and you start talking about facts, you'll be amazed that 80% of us, 80% of Americans, agree on 80% of the issues. I have friends far and wide across this country, across this globe now. This podcasting avenue has opened up doors to me, to people across the pond that I otherwise would not have been having conversations with. And I'm asked all the time by people, where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? I'm not shy about speaking my mind. On Minnesota, Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, these are some bad people. Their laws, their policies, they're terrible for Americans. They're anti-American. They're okay with open borders. They're okay with being a sanctuary city. This guy wants to put tampons in the boys' bathroom. My question is, where are they going to stick the tampon, Tim? Boys, men, biological males do not have a menstrual cycle. Are they going to stick it up their butt because they have a hemorrhoid problem? Are they going to stick it in their nose because they got a nosebleed? Where are they going to stick the tampon, big guy? This is more coverage from CBS News. Walz affirms trans athlete rights in Minnesota as Republicans praise the Supreme Court ruling that just took place this past week. After the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday ruled states can restrict transgender athletes' participation in school sports, some Minnesota officials are voicing their support for trans youth. The High Court upheld laws from West Virginia and Idaho that prohibit trans athletes from competing on teams matching their gender identity. The majority said that Title X and the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause allow schools to base eligibility on sex assigned at birth. In Minnesota, policy allows trans athletes to play on teams consistent with their identity. And outgoing Governor Tim Walz said Tuesday that's not changing. And I quote, "As the Supreme Court says, states can be cruel to trans kids. My message is clear. Here in Minnesota, we stand with and value our trans neighbors and youth." End quote, Walz said. Let me tell you something, Tim Walz. You've got to be the biggest idiot. I don't know how, I mean, it speaks volumes to how stupid Kamala Harris is to choose you as her vice president running mate. We cannot afford the 20 to 25 million illegals that Joe Biden let in this country. We cannot afford to be sanctuary cities and states that harbor and protect these animals from these third world countries. Well, Tim, this is the United States of America. And in America, we've got right. No. Stop with the BS. The United States Constitution gives rights to the United States citizens. If you are in this country and you aren't a citizen, the Constitution don't apply to you. Which means if you commit a crime, you get deported. My question is, how in the hell do we let a 10-year-old rapist not even complete his prison sentence, not complete his rehabilitation schedule, not complete his supervision schedule, and just wipe him clean like he's never done anything wrong? If this man will sexually assault a 10-year-old child, he'll do it again. Especially when you wipe his record clean. We got to stop coddling to the criminals. We got to stop coddling to the illegals. We, as American citizens, listen, if you're a Democrat, I'm sorry. You're wrong. If you watch my podcast episodes, you know I bash Donald Trump quite a bit. But these issues on the border, on trans issues, let me explain something to you. I'm in my 50s. When I was a child, there was a show on television called The Great American Hero. It's about an everyday guy that had superpowers and he could fly. I thought I could too. Right up until the point I jumped out of that tree and gravity took over. hitting the ground was the reality check. Hey, stupid, that ain't reality. Reality typically will not stop activists. Reality will not stop protesters until the reality of the moment hits their family. Do you think, when you think about all the protests that go on in America, do you think that many people just get together on the internet? Hey, let's meet up at Main Street and we're just going to raise some hell and chant some chants and throw some rock. Where do you think all that comes from? It's pre-organized. It's paid for. And if you don't know that, you're ignorant. Stop being a Democrat. Stop being a Republican and get back to being an American. We're all fighting the same fight. We all get up every day and hit the same grind. We go to work. We're overtaxed. We're just trying to make a living for our families. White or black, male or female, doesn't matter. The hate, the division, and the stupidity has got to stop. Or we have no choice. We have no options of saving this country. It's rolling downhill like a snowball headed to hell right now. And we just keep adding to the snowball. It's just picking up momentum. Every time I think that the Democrats, or the Republicans for that matter, but we're talking about Democrats today, every time I think that they can't one-up themselves, hold my beer. Hold my sweet tea. I think the most stupidest, ignorant, hold my beer politician sitting in Washington, D.C. is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. Every time that girl opens her mouth, I hit the recorder because I know it's going to be a classic roll in the floor and laugh my ass off. Stop with the stupidity. We're better than that. And if we're not, we deserve to lose this country. This man should not be out of prison. This man should have his balls cut off. Then he should be put on a plane and sent back to Honduras where he came from. And let him live the rest of his life out as a, whatever. But it's got to stop. This kind of crap has got to stop. This man is an illegal who sexually assaulted a 10-year-old American child, and we're rewarding him for bad behavior. It is sickening. It is pathetic, and it is absolutely anti-American. We're all just one accident, one diagnosis, or one unexpected phone call from living a much different life. I implore you, stay humble, be kind, show your love, and go check on your people. Until I see you on the next episode, take care.